Good morning, good evening, good afternoon for everybody. This is podcast Happy at Work. My name is Tatiana Coel. In our podcast, we meet with experts from the different countries global in the world for discussing a people-centered approach for making our business. And today, my guest from Dubai is Nancy Zakharia. Hi, Nancy.
Hi.
Nancy, I'm happy to see you here. I know what you are one of the best executive coach, and you also participate as a jury member of some jury connected with a topic for our podcast of happiness. Could you maybe add some details about your professional background for our discussion?
So, yes, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. I'm also a judge in several awards, including the Employee Happiness Awards, where it tackles lots of the topics that help in the employee experience and building a great experience along the life cycle of employees. I'm also a coach and work with teams and individuals on creating an environment where everyone can thrive, where people can achieve their potential, and where we can all together build the culture of inclusion and safety for everyone.
Nancy, my first question is about leadership. I know what you are working a lot with leaders. What are the most important challenges which now the leaders face in our world?
So, when we look at it, leaders now are dealing with many challenges internally and externally. Because if you look at the velocity of change in this modern environment, so leaders today have to navigate all these changes, from geopolitical tensions to innovation and the AI introduction to the way we do work, to the sustain. And they are also asked to have that emotional intelligence and understand the psychology to lead teams and motivate teams. So the ask is big from leaders nowadays, and there are multiple things that they need to navigate besides their technical competence as well, and them doing their.
You mentioned that the emotional intelligence. Could you explain a little bit more? I know what for a lot of people from HR, people from leadership, who manage other people, usually watch our podcast. And I think now it's emotional intelligence become more and more important. What does it mean for you, and how leaders could develop their emotional intelligence?
So, emotional intelligence, as we may all know, entails many topics, but it all starts from within. It is that self-awareness of our impact on others, of how we're showing up, and it's also managing ourselves before being able to manage others. And that helps us to understand others, manage them, and have that social awareness in the middle of all this complexity that leaders are requested to operate. They cannot be the only ones who are holding all the answers. They have to be giving the space and the safety for the people to be raising their concerns, asking questions, learning without fear. And this goes to the way they listen, simply listen, communicate, and role model vulnerability as well.
You mentioned also one important topic. It's about psychological safety. But before I want to ask you, we have a different culture in the world. So in some culture, it's much easier to speak loudly, openly with your leader, to say, yes, I have this opinion, to have a discussion, to have a conflict. In other culture, it's the distance between leader, between teammates a little bit bigger, and that's more difficult to discuss, especially tough topics. What could you recommend to leaders who really want to build a team with whom they could discuss different points of view?
Stage. But I love what the work that Timothy Clark has done on this. And he defines, like, there are 4 stages to build that psychological safety. And the most simple one is to start with something that he called inclusion safety. So do the employees feel that they belong? That's the simple thing. Do they feel that the diversity, and you mentioned the diversity, do they feel that they are respected regardless of the differences that they have, and the voices are included and heard, and everyone is given that equal opportunity? After having that, and the leader giving that space and building that inclusion safety, then we can go to that learner safety, where then employees can feel that, okay, am I safe enough to make a mistake or to ask a question or ask for help or say, oh, I actually don't know this, without having that fear of judgment. So it is for the leader to create that space so the employee, and it all depends on how he responds when the team asks these questions, and how he addresses maybe sarcasm from the other team members if it's shown, and that builds that safety, that second level of safety. This can then take the employees to that contributor safety, where they feel that they are trusted and empowered to take decisions, to work autonomously. And then this is where their mindset shift to a place where I can actually add value. But then before we have built this, we cannot ask the employees to challenge or to voice their concerns. Only then, only when the leader have successfully built these stages of inclusion, this is where they can elevate their team to that challenger safety. And this is the hardest stage of all. You know, it's very hard to reach to that stage, and it's surely very fragile, and it's not easy for employees to be in that space. So this is where the employee can feel very safe to speaking up, asking questions, to challenge. Like, even if the manager is presenting a strategy, so the employee here can say, well, actually, I can see a mistake there, and this can lead to that problem. So this is where the employee can start challenging things, and then they have the belief now and the mindset that, yes, I can challenge the way things are done without having the fear of being marginalized or being reprimanded for what I'm gonna say.
Mistakes. And I know that in some cultures it's very, very difficult to talk about mistakes and really to give, to accept the negative feedback, maybe to say, yes, I made a mistake, because it means for you what you could miss your face. So, but I know what now a lot of leaders understand. But when you talk about your mistakes, then you accept these mistakes, you discuss and make some new decision based on it, and so it help us to discuss these mistakes on all the levels. So, what could you recommend for leaders who want maybe to change their behavior, to change their approach, to become the leaders, as you said, the role models? How could they start to speak about their own mistake and give an example to the other employees? What could you recommend?
Role modeling is key, and I love what you said. And there is an important thing that leaders need to understand. So if they show up as the flawless leader, they are not encouraging others, they are intimidating others in a way, and not allowing them to bring up their mistakes or to discuss them. So it is important for leaders. Sometimes leaders feel that it might be a sign of weakness if I show that I made a mistake or I've got this wrong. I have to show that I got it all, I know it all. But actually, it is showing that vulnerability is what's gonna help the leader get to a place where the team can feel safe to bring up mistakes, to address mistakes, and to learn from these mistakes. So, because when leaders share this vulnerability and take ownership of the mistake, this is the best role modeling, and this is the best message that a leader can send. It can be as simple as, what am I missing here? I think I missed something. Or, you know what, this morning during that client meeting, I feel I messed up that answer. How can we, make it happen? What are some of the suggestions that you have? And there is a work rooted in showing that vulnerability and how vulnerability connects people and often creates that permission for others to be authentic as well. So I would say this is This is the first thing. And for leaders to understand that, for people to connect and for them to create that safe environment, they need to know that that candor helps in releasing some of the load for them and for their employees, because candor reduces stress and burnout, and as if a person or the leader is carrying that cognitive load. But when they let this load go, they will allow themselves and their team to have space in their brain, to work on innovative solutions, to work on solving problems. But if leaders are in constant protection mode and having their guard and like, no, I don't want to show any mistakes, they are wasting lots of cognitive energy on that. And it's taking away, as if there is a program, running in the background. And just, they want just to protect their image. And then this is the message they're sending to everyone. Like, yeah, have that self-protection image, which is not healthy.
I absolutely agree. I think the vulnerability of leaders sets now a new reality, but you really want to save yourself as a leader inside you. And also to avoid burnout, you need to leave and manage people another way. So, and I want to ask you, what leaders could do if they really want to become more people-centered, to become, and first thing I thought, people-centered, not only about the employees, but also about themselves, to let themselves to be the person who have some weaknesses, who could make a mistake or really have feelings. What practical steps could you recommend to leaders or maybe HRS facilitators, or could they recommend for changing the style? Because when you are Iron Man all the times at work, you are superhero at work, it's really difficult for all. And the other people also think of themselves and you're as a superhero, so they are like children in this situation, or they expect for you to decide everything for us. So if you want to become more people-centered leader, what should you do?
I think a couple of simple things here, because there are many angles where we can tackle this from. But some simple things is first maybe asking questions when the leader doesn't know the answer. So, and it is okay to ask those questions. So be comfortable with not knowing and be comfortable in asking the team, what is it that we're not addressing? What are some of the concerns that we are not discussing here? That's one of the basic things, and getting curious to listen to the perspectives of others. That's the first thing. Ask and be open to listen to different perspectives. And I think an important thing here for leaders is to normalize making mistakes. Some of the teams want to hide mistakes. Oh no, we failed. It's looking at mistakes as a learning point, and it's something normal and something needed for innovation and creativity. And it's okay. Eventually, we are all humans. So for them to create that culture, because otherwise there will be that toxic culture of blame or defensiveness, or someone will be looking to blame another department or another team member. But when we normalize and we openly talk about these mistakes, this is where we allow that space for creativity, for a different positive energy among the team member and for us as well. And this is also backed by research. Amy Edmondson, she's like the one who came up with that psychological safety term. And based on her research, she found that the most high performing teams are the ones who reported the most mistakes. Not that they did or like more mistakes, but they reported the mistakes and they learned from them. So there was no fear, because when fear exists, curiosity just blocks. So for leaders to tap into the potential of their employees and themselves, they have to remove the element of fear. It is neurologically not possible to be afraid and be curious. So this is one of the shifts that that the leaders can do. And another one which I feel leaders can tap into their talents and strengths. Know what is it that we are good at and what is it every team member is good at. And then we can build on that. We as humans, we have the tendency to look at what is not working, what is my areas of improvement, and just focus on that. But we can only achieve our peak performance, our high performance, when we tap into what is it that we are good at? What are our talents and how can I leverage these talents in the service of everyone? How can I serve others through my talents? And to be able to do that, an important thing that leaders sometimes miss is self-care. So they need to pause, reflect, re-energize to gain that energy. And this is how they model the same for their employees and avoid getting to burnout.
Mm. As I see in a lot of countries, and I think United Arab Emirates could not be excluded from this trend. What more and more companies have to talk about well-being. Well-being of employees, well-being of leaders, of burnout prevention, and so on. From a perspective of the companies, from organization. Now we discuss a lot about leaders, personalists, about a team. If we talk about the organization, which trends do you see now if we talk about well-being, about mental health, about psychological safety, the culture change?
There is a lot that I see, especially internally in the organization, and externally also when I judge on awards on different categories. As well, I see a huge focus, or even when I attend conferences and hear case studies from other organizations. So there is a huge focus on well-being, and when we say well-being, it's interesting how the organizations now are tapping into all the areas or the quadrants of that well-being, not only the physical. So we tap into that social well-being as well, into the definitely like the physical, the social, the mental, and the emotional well-being. So there are lots of programs that the companies are doing nowadays that look at and address the mental health, the emotional health. There are lots of organizations that have scheduled or planned physical activities, whether they have internal teams together, whether they do some physical sessions, whether it's yoga or any other activities. And there is a huge drive to always advocate and talk about this and talk about the importance of self-care. I've seen this trend increasing more than ever, and advising employees to take that self-care. Especially some employees just go on like, oh, I have lots of work, and they don't take their leave. So I see more organizations more and more. No, take the leave and fully disconnect. We don't want to see you online. You deserve that time to re-energize.
It's I think it's really a very important tendency, because now we see the really huge level of burnout, especially after the pandemic, and the people were when we lived in a situation of a big stress. So, and they try to work hard for during this period, and now have different issues, political, economical issues, which give us a lot of stress. From perspective, from a decreasing the level of stress, for recharging your batteries as a leader, recharging batteries as employer for more effectiveness. What recommendation from this perspective could you give on the maybe on two levels, on a personal level, what I'm as a leader could make for myself, and what they are as an organization could do for our employees for decreasing stress, for recovering our employees after the stress, because I think all the world know what is a very tough period of world. Now we have some countries who also have this tough situation, but we need to work. They need to make money for our families. So it's, if you talk about this, what could you recommend for these two sides for the leader's personal side and employee's personal side, and from organizational side.
Yeah, and as you said, stress is increasing. And if we look at the stress as well, just the stress of working online sometimes and facing screens all day in meetings, that the fact that we work in a hybrid environment on Zoom meetings, maybe all day, this in itself can create a stressful situation or a burnout from screens, in addition to everything else that's happening around us. So the first thing is for leaders or individuals to recognize what are the stressors around me. That's the first thing. And what is it in my control? What is it that I can influence? And what is it out of my control? Because if we try to control something that is outside of our control, we're only increasing our circle of worry and worrying about it. And we are helpless. Like we can't do anything about it. We are just going in that vicious cycle of worry, stress, and burnout. So the first differentiator is to list the things that are really a stressors for me and focusing on what is it that I can influence and what is it in my control. And normally the things that somehow are in our control is our thoughts sometimes and the activities and the things that we can do. So what I would advise leaders or any individual is to look for that balanced, well-rounded attention to all the areas of well-being. Sometimes a leader is doing great from a fit perspective, but they could do better on the social side of things. So noticing and realizing that our social strength can help us overcome, or our social connections can help us overcome the stress is important. So having a good circle of friends or people around that socially they can connect with, that is a great stress relief. Having physical activity, even if it's a 30-minute a day walk or a run or some stretches, this is essential for the body. And surely looking at things strengthening their mental toughness, not only their physical toughness. And here it is about them being aware of, are we responding to things happening or are we reacting? And how can we manage that to move from the reaction to responding? Because we are a choice at the end of the day. And in that split of a second, how are we reacting to things or responding in a proper way to things to manage the stress around us? As an organization, it's that constant reminder for employees. It is that education, constant education on giving that importance, showing how important it is, having programs around it. So we can do the education part. I've seen many organizations have whole employee assistance program where employees can connect with a confidential external source to talk about. So they have financial coaches, they have coaches, psychiatrists, therapists, where they can talk to them about anything for them and for their families. So it is also extending beyond the well-being of employees to offer something as an organization to their families as well to maintain that balance.
As I like, we mentioned a lot of things which we need to focus on. And also, what I like to think is said from reaction to responding, from to react to responding to the some difficult situation. Also, I think it's really, really important part of be healthier and social connection. It's also very, very important. So, the, and all your recommendations about the physical exercises during a day, physical activities that you could do.
And sometimes it is in the simple things. So we miss sometimes knowing the impact of sleep on our stress and well-being. It's maybe a simple thing, but if we didn't sleep well, we are more we have the tendency to react in a way that we may regret later. So something as small as watching our sleep, making sure we get enough sleep, our nutrition, our physical health, and sometimes, how do I put it? It is being grateful for things, like looking at things from a positive perspective, and giving gratitude for others can make us feel well and help us put down that stress. So yeah, sometimes it's in the small little details.
Mhm. Maybe I also could share some team rituals or some team decision that your organization, the team with leader could make and implement for increasing their well-being. Did I ask, for example, you mentioned what when we spend a lot of time near our computer, we really feel them ourselves really more tired than we spend this time, for example, a live conversation. So maybe could you recommend some ritual for the team, for example, which you could use for strengthening the connections inside the organization, especially in the hybrid work? Maybe some rituals which help them to recharge because it comes from one meeting to another meeting to another meeting. Maybe some ideas. I think it's also could be very
Yeah.
useful.
And there are, again, very simple things that can be done but can make a big difference. Instead of scheduling a 1 hour meeting, schedule a 45-minute meeting so that you leave 15 minutes at least between one meeting and the other for you, like to breathe, to stretch. And for leaders also who have team members that are dispersed across geographies or multiple locations. Have meetings dedicated, we can call them like a team huddle if you want. So have meetings dedicated only to check in on people, not just to hear about updates or what are the timelines or how are we doing on this. And even when you have those meetings, the progress check in, dedicate at least 10 minutes at the beginning of the meeting to check in on everyone, to connect in a way where people feel valued and they're not just there to tick a number or to do something. They are appreciated. The leader is interested in how they feel and wants to listen to them. And this helps the entire team, even though they might not see each other personally on a daily level, to feel connected. And that sense of connection within the organization, and this is proven by research as well, even by Gallup, that they say if you have a friend in the organization or you connect with the people, you feel happier and you feel more engaged and you can produce more. So the productivity increases as well. So with these meetings, these are simple things that can help in increasing that connection. So give time to building relationships. You know, with the virtual meeting, sometimes we lose that water cooler discussion in the office. And so create them. You can
Mhm.
create them. You can just ping people to talk about things. The team leader can have these meetings to check on people. These are simple things. And I would say recognition, as I said earlier about gratitude. Recognize team member for the efforts, not only for the outcomes, and give feedback, give positive feedback, not only constructive feedback. When this feedback is given, when the recognition is there, a small email of thank you sometimes goes a
Mhm.
long way and makes a big difference. Or recognizing a team member in a town hall or in a team session, and then creating that environment where team members can recognize each other for something that they have done well. This all impacts the way we feel, the way we connect, and this definitely helps in dealing with the stress and burnout. So the organization and leaders have to normalize this, have to make time and space for this, and have to show that people and relationships are important. It's not only about execution and doing tasks.
Mhm. And so, to sum up our fruitful conversation, I think we mentioned a lot of very important and useful things for leaders, for the team. To sum up, what three main tips could you give to leaders, to people from HR who want to build the organization and the people feel themselves from one side, feel the psychological safety? They could speak loudly about the mistakes and it helps them to handle with mistakes. And another way is organization that also pay attention to the employee well-being, mental health, and help to prevent them burnouts. So what three main tips which you could give?
First of all, because you mentioned psychological safety, sometimes when people hear the term psychological safety, they think this is an HR initiative, and it's where it's about people being nice to each other and smiling to each other all the time. It is where we maybe bubble wrap everyone to make sure we don't hurt their feelings, but it's totally the opposite. It is not about comfort. It is about having those fearless discussions. So I think what leaders and organizations can do is here have that understanding that leaders need to know that this is not a term that HR is responsible for, that they can make or break this for employees on a daily level. And it's not about being nice. It is about doing things with a sense of accountability. So holding people accountable and addressing things when they happen and allowing a voice for everyone is essential. So this is one of the important things that encompasses everything. So building that culture of where speaking up is welcomed and is rewarded. So this is one of the important things. Another thing, again, I go to that the action. So a leader, regardless of how much psychological safety is there, it can immediately evaporate if the leader, for example, if someone brings a message or bad news, if the leader shoots the messenger. So it is how the leader reacts in that split of a second of that moment. And so just thanking the person for raising this concern and bringing this problem and then dealing with it as a team sends again a strong message there. So these are like the two big ones for me.
Nancy, thanks a lot for all advice which you give today to our audience from different countries. And absolutely sure what it could be implemented in all the parts of the world. Thanks for participation, for your advice, for sharing your knowledge and your experience.
Thank you so much. Thanks.
This is podcast Happy at Work. My name is Tatiana Koval. Stay connected.